Welcome to 7 UIs with Replicant, a video series where we'll be building some user interfaces with Replicant and Clojure in a functional manner. In this prelude episode, I'll take you through the technical setup of the project, and then in the next episode, we'll start our first actual UI task. So without any further ado, let's get started. So as you can see, I have an empty directory. We'll start by adding a deps.eden file. It will specify what paths to look for files and some deps, of course. So we'll have Clojure, which is currently at version 1.12. And then we'll have Replicant, which is currently at version 2.25, 3.27. And then we'll use Thomas Heller's Shadow CSS, which is currently at version 2.28.22. So then we'll have some aliases, or actually just one, where we'll have some extra paths. And that will be the dev path and the test path, so we can write some tests for our UI. Next up, we'll configure the shadow build in shadow CSS.eden. We'll tell it to use deps for dependencies, and specifically to include the dev alias. Then we'll configure an HTTP server at port 1890 that serves the files from resources public. And then we'll have one build for the app, which is a browser build. It'll have just one main module whose init function will be GUI's dev main. And then we'll tell it to dump files in resources public JS. Now, this directory is going to contain a lot of files, so let's just go and ignore those right away, forget. Next up, we're going to have to create this main function, so we'll go into dev, GUIs, dev CLJS, have a main function that says loaded, and we'll also have a reload function that Shadow can call when it reloads our code. After reload. Shadow also has a npm component. We'll do npm install save shadow, or save dev rather, shadow CLJS. And for the UI stuff, we'll be using Tailwind, so I'll include that as well. Tailwind CSS and the CLI, and also Daisy UI. To get Tailwind up and running, we're going to create a small CSS file in source main CSS. Create the directory, import Tailwind CSS. And then we can specify what source files it should look for. And that's going to be pretty much everything that ends in CLJ, CLJS, or CLJC. And then finally, load the Daisy UI plugin. And that's it. Now we're going to create a make file. And yeah, it's going to do install if you haven't done that before. Then we're going to have Tailwind, which is going to depend on node modules. And it's going to say npx tailwind css CLI. Input will be that main CSS file we just created, and the output will be in resources public style CSS, and we'll have it watch for changes. Shadow also depends on node modules. Also runs npx. it's just going to say shadow CLJS watch app. And then both of these are phony tasks in that they don't create the files that the tasks are named for. So like that. With that in place, we can try and see if the shadow build runs. That's always useful. So make shadow. If this works well, we'll restart the REPL in Emacs, but I just like to do it one time in the terminal first, because if there's a configuration error, it's usually easier to debug from the terminal. But this looks okay. Yeah, not found, missing index.html. So let's create that file then. We'll go in resources, public index.html. Add a doc type, HTML tags, head, title, 7 UIs with Replicant. Let's just get the encoding right and also make this mobile friendly with the viewport tag. It should have content width, device width, and initial scale 1. And then we'll load the CSS file we built. Sheet type. And it's going to just be in styles CSS. And the final bit of the puzzle is to load also the script file, which looks like that. Let's try that browser again. It says styles not found, main.js not found. So now it says loaded. The styles are not found because we're not running Tailwind yet, but we can fix that by stopping the shadow build, and then we can make the Tailwind build. And now we can go in Emacs, and then we can do jack in from here. This will give us a REPL in Emacs, which will be very handy when we start solving the UI tasks. And there we go. Now we have the theme. It's printing. If I make a change to the file, it says, it didn't say reloaded. It should be actually after load. There it says reloaded. Okay, so then we're good and ready to go. We just need to commit this stuff. We'll ignore this one. We'll ignore this one as well. Add these. This one we'll definitely ignore. Add these. This file will also actually ignore because it's generated by Tailwind. But there we go. You know, project set up for making UIs. And that's it for this prelude episode. Please join me in the first real episode where we'll start looking at some user interface tasks. So long.